Assalamu alaikum and welcome. This is a very spur of the moment video. I had a one-on-one session that alhamdulillah went really well with a very sweet client, and the system that was created during that session was just really good, and I was like, okay, this is something I think a lot of people would benefit from learning. So if you are somebody who feels stuck in their marriage, you feel unhappy in your marriage, you feel like, I don't know, like, is this how it's supposed to be? Is there something that needs to be changed? If you have those feelings, whether they're stemming from trauma or not, this is a system, inshallah, you can apply to both situations. Watch this video. My name is Hannah. If you're new here, I am a trauma coach. I work with Muslim women and help them heal from complex trauma and reinvent themselves. I do a lot of also just Islamic coaching, life coaching as well, because sometimes ladies reach out to me because they've seen a video of mine that really resonated with them and they just want life coaching. They just want guidance. So in situations like that, I'm able to kind of build out systems and help walk them through situations where we can give them more clarity and make just life a little easier for them. So I'm going to share my screen and we are going to, inshallah, be looking at a system together that you can apply to your marriage, or even if you're not married yet, inshallah, may Allah make it easy for you. You can also apply to your future marriage. You might also find this very helpful, at least the first part, in other parts of life. So let's start off, inshallah. Bismillah. Ignore the title. I just use the template that I typically use for my community coaching calls. If you don't know, I have a digital community in school. The link to join it is in the bio. We do a live community coaching call where I hop on. I basically teach a bit, coach a bit, and then ladies ask questions and we coach them through it. A lot of it has to do with trauma. Sometimes it's just life related. It's really fun and super valuable. So starting off, anytime you have a situation in your life where you are feeling confused, where you are feeling unhappy, you are feeling stuck, the intensity of the grief, of the fear, of the unknown and the confusion can start to weigh down on you. And it can start to feel like there's nothing that I can do. It feels so scary sometimes. In situations like this, especially in a marriage, where you're like almost questioning, is this how my marriage is going to be forever? You're feeling really unhappy. There's a big question you need to ask yourself. The question is, what is in my locus of control? What does that mean? Your locus of control, you can see the definition right here, is the place where we can influence, change, or impact the issues in our lives. It is a place of empowerment, and it is a place of shifts. Now, here's the issue. You see the circle. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see me marking it, but do you see the circle, the blue portion? This is where most of us spend our time. Right. We spend our time stressing about things that I can't change, things that I can't do anything about, the things that are, because they might be the most stressful. But when you're doing that, you're just draining your mental energy and your ability to actually make impact, because you're so fixated on things that can't be done, that it's the monster in the corner that you can't tell to leave the room, and then you're paralyzed. We want to shift the way we think about things. We want to start asking, what can we actually do something about? Now, asking us this question doesn't have a bearing on the outcome, right? Asking yourself this question alone doesn't make everything perfect and wonderful. Life is not that simple. But at the very least, it teaches you and gives you some insight into where can I start putting my time, my energy, my mental load in order to make impact. So if you, for example, let's say you're not feeling the best about marriage in this instance, and please know that whenever I talk about these things, I'm not talking about abusive situations. I'm not talking like that's a bit of a different situation. I'm going to give the example of, let's say you have two people. It seems like, there's not abuse there, but there's like disconnection. The marriage isn't fulfilling. It's not happy. You might feel neglected to a certain extent, husband or wife, whoever is watching this. And you need to know, okay, what the heck do I do? Like, what can we do? Ask yourself, what can I do? Are there date nights that we've been neglecting that I can plan? Is there something about my mindset that I can shift that would make things easier? Is there a gratitude practice that I can start to implement? Should I start working with someone, a coach, a counselor, a therapist, because I need more clarity and I need more direction in how I want to live my life? Is there an intervention where somebody actually needs accountability? You need to bring someone in to intervene on your behalf. Is there advice that you can get from someone that you trust? Is there a skill set that you lack? And if you were to gain that skill set, whether it's in being able to communicate, or a domestic skill set, or money management skill set, if that's like a big fight in your marriage, how you guys deal with finances, where can I acquire that skill set? What is in my locus of control? What is the problem? What can I actually do about it? What can I actually put my time, put my energy, and do something about it that is going to affect things? All right. When you've defined your locus of control, you now have your game, like your game plan, right? You have the place where you can actually start to make impact. And doing these things over weeks, over months, is actually what's going to change. It's going to shift the needle, right? Staying here and obsessing in the blue about what you can't control, things just stay the same. The next part that's really, really important is the part of finding your voice. Very often in marriages where there's not abuse, but people are just not happy, they're not connecting, they're not excited anymore, somebody is being silent. It's like the elephant in the room. No one wants to come out and say that things are not where they should be. No one wants to talk about the fact that, you know, the first few months or the first year or 2 or 3 or 4 of marriage were really great and now it just sucks. People don't want to do that. Why? Because it's vulnerable. It's hard. There's oftentimes you get little bits and pieces of a conversation that will come up, and then you'll kind of step back and retract into yourself and not be able to communicate what you need to, or somebody gets really sensitive about things and so you shut down, or somebody kind of disregards or invalidates what you're trying to bring up and then you shut it down. Finding your voice is really important, because if you cannot vocalize what is going on inside of you, the way that you are perceiving the marriage, and all it is blame and shame, and the other person doesn't actually fully know what's going on, that's not fair to the other person. Right? Can you imagine going through thinking everything is fine because you don't maybe fully know how to operate in a marriage? Nobody ever taught you. You didn't have the skill set. You think it's fine. And then the other person is like, no, this is horrible. I'm contemplating divorce. I'm miserable in this marriage. And they never came out and said it. Right? That's a very, very difficult pill to swallow. And it's a lot easier to repair an issue where you know that the issue exists. You know what it was. You know what can be done about it. Find your voice. When it is time to have those difficult conversations, be willing to have those conversations without retracting, without shutting down, because at the very least, think of it as the right of the other person to have everything laid out in front of them. You guys made a promise in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the very least, let's try to do everything we can to maintain the promise, and give some insight into what's going on inside of you. If you don't know, if you're confused, if you're just like, I don't actually know why I'm so unhappy, I don't know, then that means that's a good time for you to start thinking about working with someone who can actually help you figure out why that's going on. Because big decisions that come from a place of confusion are not, they tend not to go well. When we pray, for example, istikhara on a big decision, you're supposed to have gone through your pros and cons list. You're supposed to have made, istishara, talking to other people, seeking counsel. You're supposed to have done that so you can come with a mountain of evidence and data to be able to support a decision one way or another. And then you decide on what you're going to do. And then you pray istikhara as a means of consulting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking Allah if this is a good decision for me, then make it easy. And if not, then replace it with something better. If we're not vocalizing what the issue is, and we're instead like in this place of confusion and we can't find clarity, we're not going to make a decision that aligns with what is best for us, because we don't even know what's best for us. Write things down. When you're trying to find your voice and you don't know what's going on, write things down. It is so, so helpful to have things on paper. And I'm going to give you actually a guide of questions to ask to guide your reflections, to guide your kind of journaling, inshallah, to help you out with that. So you've identified you have a locus of control. Maybe you are getting some ideas of what that locus of control can look like. What are things you can actually do? You now understand the importance of finding your voice. You understand it is the right of the other person that I find my voice and I share what's going on in a respectful as respectful of a manner as I possibly can, where we both know what's laid out on the table. We understand halas, like this is a point where we are going to really attempt to make a change. So at the least, you know that you've pulled several levers to be able to do what you can for your marriage. Moving on. There are big questions we might want to ask. And this is something helpful to do on your own. This is helpful to do with your spouse. And by the way, even if you don't have a super, like, situation is not super bad. Let me just turn this side off. These are just good check-in questions to have. And listen, let me tell you something. If you think it's weird to have check-in questions for your marriage, you're probably gonna fall into a place that you're not very happy to be at. You have two people coming from two different backgrounds, two different personalities. You need to be able to have conversations, even if it's not as like formal as this, on what's working for you guys and what's not working for you guys. We can't have two people kind of, walking side by side, but no one knows the direction of the other. So I think this is a very important thing that often is overlooked, and it's a big reason why a lot of marriages fail. You ask them, did you guys ever have a conversation of what your vision looked like? Did you guys ever have a conversation of how your your perception of marriage is? Did you guys ever sit down and actually say, okay, this is how we're going to build our marriage together, right? Did you ever talk about how your trauma, past trauma, affects how you show up in a marriage? Most people say no. They've never had these conversations. Maybe in passing, maybe if they're lucky, it was a passing conversation or a thought or something they mentioned, but they were never so intentional about it. Why would you not be intentional about one of the biggest acts of worship that you have? We're so intentional about our jobs. We'll go 4, 6, 8 years studying to be able to get a job. We'll show up on time. We'll make sure that we check off all the boxes. We'll make sure that we complete our assignments when they're done, or, if you're our documentation when it's done. But with our marriage, we just kind of walk in and think everything's it's going to be fine without us putting in much effort. Don't be that person. By the way, this is a really good time for me to plug. I'm not sure when this video is going out, but if it is before December 14th and 15th, I am actually hosting a 2-day accelerated coaching program. It is a premarital coaching program specifically focused on giving the skills that are needed for a healthy and successful marriage to Muslims who have had trauma. This is basically the only program like this that exists. So many of the premarital programs are they're not focused on trauma. They're focused on kind of giving you the skills of how to communicate, how to ask each other the proper questions, how to get a sense of building a future forward. But it doesn't talk about attachment style. It doesn't talk about how your perception of safety and love affects how you show up in your marriage. It doesn't talk about those things. We're going to be talking about them. Not only talking about them, we are going to be coaching you through them. I say we, it's me. I am going to, inshallah, be coaching you through these different aspects. The link is in my description, inshallah, for you to learn more about the program. Even if you are like, I don't know if this is for me, just click on the link. At least look at what the modules are. Look at what the topics are. See if it aligns with you. See if it's something that you feel like, yeah, oh, this sounds like something I need. I'm not going to talk too much about it anymore, inshallah. Just take a look at it. There are a few spots left, inshallah. And this is only ever happening one time live. I don't intend to be doing this again live, like face to face. I'm going to take the recordings and turn it into a course. So this is your one opportunity to get to have your questions answered. And it is basically the lowest investment of any of my programs. So highly advise you, inshallah, to try that. What was I going to say? Yeah. So let's get back to the questions, inshallah. Here's some guiding questions. Number 1, what does marriage mean to me? What does a marriage mean to me? Sometimes husband and wife come from two completely different perceptions of marriage. What happens if you have someone who they had parents that were so like obsessed with each other and it was so obvious, and the children got to see that and they got to understand, oh my God, like a marriage is a relationship where the husband and the wife affirm each other and they are caring of each other and they hug each other in front of the kids and they help each other and the dad helps in the kitchen, and that's what this person's perception of marriage is. Compared to a person who grew up where their mom and dad barely spoke to each other. If they spoke to each other, it was just about things that needed to get done, bills that needed to be paid, what was going to be for dinner, an appointment that needed to be, set. And they didn't see emotion, and they thought that's what a marriage is, right? What does a marriage mean to you? Don't point at the other person and say, well, this you're wrong about. What does it mean to me? Most of us didn't get a formal education in what marriage is, especially from an Islamic sense, right? What does it mean to me? When you can come with the two separate definitions, and marriage is XYZ, and you can present your evidences as to why you believe marriage is that way, then you understand where each other is coming from. You get perspective. And that changes everything, because one person might be saying something and you think it's coming from them being cruel or dismissive or cold, but it might just actually be that they just never had very emotional, touchy, parents, and they don't realize that that's actually how things should be. Number two, what makes a marriage successful to me? What makes a marriage successful to me? What needs to happen in a marriage to make it successful, right? How often are you guys communicating? What does communication look like? Is it, are there lots of terms of endearment? Do you guys have discussions of how your days went? What does quality time look like? Are you guys, very keen on giving each other gifts? What does your Islamic worship together look like? Do you guys do things together? Or is it separate? Do you guys celebrate each other? Do you guys, cheer each other on when you have certain goals that you want to accomplish, whether it's a health goal or a career goal? What does a successful marriage look like to you? Again, we want to get a sense of what is the other person's framing of marriage and what is your framing, so you can compare it and you'll be able to see, oh, this is where the gaps are. Next, is my marriage successful and fulfilling? This should be a very easy question to answer. Go with your gut. It's either a yes or a no. There's no in between. I want you to give this a yes or a no. Okay. The more we sit in the dirty middle, the gray area, the less objective we can get and the less that we can actually do something about what's going on. Next, what is happening in my marriage that is making it unfulfilling? So if you say, no, my marriage is not successful and not fulfilling, right? You're not happy in your marriage. You're not excited about it. What is happening in marriage that is making it unfulfilling? Objectively. Let me stop here. There's a lot of people who are like, well, people are getting divorced too easily, left and right. And you know what, even if it's not the most amazing thing, like you still have a good man or you still have a good a woman. And so you should stick it out and you need to just deal with that. People who say that do not understand how mentally torturous it is to be in a situation where you do not feel loved, where you do not feel seen, where you don't feel heard, where you feel like you are just withering away. The mental toll that it takes. It is so easy for us when someone physically harms another person to be like, yeah, get out of there. But when there is the emotional neglect, the toll that it takes, the way that it eats a person from the inside and out is so horrific that this is part of why so many marriages are falling apart. So instead of telling people to stick things out and to continue to mentally torture ourselves, why don't we start teaching people how to actually turn what used to be this empty, unfulfilling relationship into something that is fulfilling and mentally uplifting? Because that's the Prophet ﷺ's model for marriage. His marriages, when you hear them, there was fun, there was connectedness, there was purpose. The Prophet ﷺ's wives felt seen, they felt heard, they felt supported. It is very clear they had a healthy means of interaction. So that's what we want. So I say that just to validate anyone who's like feeling that when they're being told, well, yeah, it's fine, or oh my God, divorce is so horrible, don't do it. I'm not divorced. I've never been divorced. I don't intend to get divorced, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect me and my marriage and all of those who are watching this as well. Same for you. But I'm just essentially, forgive me, I'm just trying to validate the fact that I get how it can be so draining and how for so many people being out of that is more, it makes life easier than being in it. Okay, so let's focus on what we can do to actually make things successful instead of telling people just bear it out. Because if you tell someone they're going to be living like this for another 10, 20, 30 years, and you can't offer them any solutions, then what are you doing? Right? So ask yourself, what is happening in my marriage that is making it unfulfilling, specifically, objectively? We need things that we can change. You know, you don't see me, you don't hear me. You don't love me. I don't feel loved by you. That's not objective. Those are emotions, they're feelings. They're the way you are perceiving the situation. They might be very valid, but people need things that they can measure and change, especially if the issue is that there's like an emotional disconnect. Sometimes people are just a little more logical and they'll do it. They'll show you that they love you in a way that they can love you if they know what it looks like. So what does it look like objectively? We don't spend time together. Okay, what is time? What is time to you? Do you guys eat together, eat dinner together? That might not, maybe it's not time. Maybe it's quality time. We don't spend quality time together. We don't do things together where we can enjoy each other's company. We don't talk with one another. We don't like go out. It's like all our life is task. It's cleaning the kitchen and the dishes and cooking and paying these bills and making sure the kids' appointments are doctor's appointments are set and making sure that they finish their assignments and, doing the laundry. And that's all that life is. What is happening objectively? When you say something that upsets you, does the other person just shut down and not even acknowledge it? Is it unfulfilling because you had to sacrifice something and that's haunting you now, right? And you want to be able to tap back into that, but you don't know how to have the conversation. What is it objectively that's unfulfilling? This is why I'm saying get a notebook, write these things out, because when you write those things out, it's going to be a lot easier to have the conversation. What do I need in this marriage or else I can't continue? What do I need in this marriage? Need an EED in this marriage or else I can't continue. We will blame people who, get to their breaking point. And yet we never ask this question. What do you need? It might be that one person doesn't need that much quality time. They're content coming home and you're there. Whereas another person, for them to feel loved in the deepest part of their heart, they need quality time. It is a requirement for them. It is how they feel like this is a marriage. And this typically tends to be usually like a woman, the wife has certain emotional needs that the husband's not able to fulfill. And sometimes it comes strictly from the husband not even realizing that this is a need. That maybe if he had known, or had been articulated very clearly, then he would see this as a project of, oh, okay, I need to be more validating. My wife needs more words of affirmation. I need to compliment her more, or I need to say thank you more, or I need to say, you look beautiful more, whatever it is. Give the needs. Needs are sometimes really big, and sometimes they're just tons of small needs, but they hold up the foundation of a marriage. Imagine, okay, I'm holding this with all 5 fingers. Imagine what happens if needs are not met. Each of my fingers is a need, right? Eventually, I'm not going to be able to do it. Like I still have 2 fingers, but it's starting to slip around. No, it falls. And once it falls, what are we doing? So it might be major needs or small little needs that hold up the foundation of a marriage, but write them down. And then what needs to be done objectively to make it more fulfilling and successful? This stems from the question about needs. So if we know what is happening that's making it unfulfilling, and we have objective answers for that. For example, we don't spend quality time. That's making it unfulfilling. Now we can answer the question, what needs to be done objectively to make it more fulfilling and successful? Okay, we address that. We're going to spend more quality time. We are going to go out on a date once a week if we're not already doing that. And whatever it looks like. The other question, what do I need in this marriage or else I can't continue? When those needs are set out, you can go from that need and it's like, okay, how are we going to meet this need? What am I going to do to meet this need? And this goes both ways. This isn't just for a wife. This is for husbands too. You should be able to communicate. What do I need? Okay. So I hope that was really helpful. We're going to scroll down to one last thing. This was an activity that my husband actually came up with. And I remember that I was like, oh, subhanAllah, this is such a smart idea. So what you can do, if you have a whiteboard, you can do it on a whiteboard. You can do it on a sheet of paper. You can even pull up a Canva template. You're going to create 3 circles. What I love, what I like, what I need. And then separate outside of that, you're going to create a circle of what I hate. And you are going to start filling out in each of these circles things that relate to your marriage. So, what I need, what I love, what I like. Someone might love something, but they don't need it. Okay. You can also turn this into a Venn diagram because sometimes there are things that you love and you need. And so you can kind of in the middle of those two you can put in. But I'll give you an example, okay? My husband loves when I go watch him like play sports. So if he's in a basketball league and when they have a game, he loves that I come and watch him do that. He feels supported, he feels seen. He doesn't need it. Meaning if it doesn't happen, it's not going to tear the marriage apart. But because I know that he appreciates it so much and I know that it means so much to him, when I am free and available and he lets me know that he has a basketball game, I will go there. I'll go see him. And if I'm busy and I can take some of my work with me, such as if I'm doing something like, and it can be done from my phone instead of the laptop, then I'll go and I'll kind of split my attention between the two, right? What I need might look like for me, need one thing at least a week where it is just us two, no distractions, no phones, and it is just us. We're doing something. So basically like a weekly date. And it can be as simple as us watching a movie together. It can be as simple as us going for a walk in the park, and not anymore because it's freezing, and grabbing like lunch after. But I need that. I need to feel connected in that way. Now, or he could go and say, why would you need that? Like, come on, we care about each other. We spend so much time together anyways. You know, we're home together a lot, da, da, da. But the need category is not something you argue with. When someone is saying they need something, your job as a husband or a wife is to say, what can I do to make sure you get this need met? Right? What can I do? So this is pretty self-explanatory. What I hate becomes your red line. It's a thing that we will try to avoid with all our might. Try to avoid it. Example, someone might hate, let's say, someone might absolutely hate that you're on your phone while they're talking to you. Now, it might be a dislike. It's like, come on, but others might have a very visceral reaction, like it makes them feel disrespected. Okay, that becomes something that you just avoid, right? Someone might hate that you leave dishes on the counter instead of putting them in the sink. It creates a tremendous amount of agitation. It might seem small to you, but you try your best to avoid it. Now, the really cool thing about this activity is it does one of two things. It either gives you a really good game plan of how to like manage your marriage. So you have the things that you absolutely have to do, and this should be a small list. It shouldn't be this long, extravagant like list. What you absolutely need is usually just a set of like a few things. And then you have the things that you absolutely avoid. And now you have a good balance. And then you have your bonus points. Like, let's say this is what I need is what keeps you at like a 0, right? And what you hate is like -3. And then what I love is +3 points. And then what I like is +1 points. We always want to try to like continue to up our points. In a game that you're playing a video game, it's like you want more points. You're not trying to let yourself go into the negative because then you'll die. So this is a really, really great way to have that game plan. The other thing is that sometimes you realize, oh, there is a major issue that we cannot get over. We can't get past. What happens if someone has a need that you absolutely cannot fulfill? Like you just can't do it. I mean, I can't think of an example right now, but you can't offer it. Right. What if the husband has a crazy demanding job where he is flying all over the country or all over the world, and he's only home for maybe a few days a month, and his wife needs presence. She needs a husband who's there. What happens then? What if something that you absolutely hate is something that the person is not willing to give up? What happens if you married someone who's not religious? Maybe you knew in the beginning, you didn't think too much of it, but now you have a kid and you hate that they don't pray. You hate that they don't fast Ramadan. What happens? You might not have ever known what the big gaps are until you do an activity like this. And at that point, you have a few choices. You can bring in someone like an interventionist, like a marriage counselor, a marriage therapist, to start helping you have the conversations around this. Someone might decide it's time for me to change XYZ because this marriage is worth it to me. Some might decide, actually, this marriage is not worth it to me. I don't want to give this up, whatever, and they leave. Others might decide, I'm just going to bite my tongue. I'm not happy here, but for the sake of my kids, or for the sake of, you know, my not causing too much of an issue for my family, whatever it might be, I'm not gonna leave. Either way, clarity is so powerful, and it can just do amazing things for you. So as a recap, focus on what is in your locus of control. That is a place where you are empowered and can actually make a difference. Find your voice. You need to be able to express what is actually happening. It is not fair for the other person to not know what's going on. Ask yourself these really important questions. Spend time reflecting. Make sure that you have a practice in your marriage to be able to answer these questions, because you need to be able to come from a place of clarity and less confusion. And lastly, an activity like this can be extremely marriage changing, for better for many people, or for better in a different way, because it might be that this is not a person who is emotionally ready to be married. Yes, you might have been married, but not everyone who's married was fit for marriage. Do you get what I'm saying? Marriage isn't a manna. It's one of the, it is the most highly recommended sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. It is called half our deen. The level of weight that it has is so heavy. We wouldn't trust everyone to be a surgeon, right? Because of the amount associated with it. And yet people get married left and right before they're ever, you know, before it's ever determined, are they actually suitable to take on that amana? So I hope this is helpful for you guys. As I mentioned before, if you are looking to take this to another level, you have trauma, you want to make sure your trauma doesn't get in the way of your marriage, the 2-day accelerated premarital coaching program, it's called Reattached, is linked in my bio. If you are someone who wants to do a one-on-one session to figure this stuff out for yourself, create a different system, help you kind of move forward with clarity in your marriage, please feel free to reach out. I have several people who have reached out with one of their main issues being marriage. I've even actually worked with couples, alhamdulillah, in helping support them in building a healthier marriage. That is something that I'm offering. So you're always welcome. Link in the description to book an appointment. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. Again, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to end the recording. Assalamu alaikum.